Well, hello there. How is everyone? I hope you're well, you amazing, beautiful, wonderful people. It's Saturday. Sadly, this is video 2 of 2 today. And this is going to be my initial reaction to the NBC Dateline documentary that was released a few hours ago on Bryan Kohberger. Yeah, it's quite an interesting one. And I know that it's affected a lot of people, both in the community and creators alike. I'm not going to name any names, but I was contacted by a creator that basically, I believe that because of what they saw within this documentary, where they once believed Bryan Kohberger was innocent of this crime, they now believe otherwise. So it's had its effect. It's had its effect. This is what this was meant to do. This is the whole purpose of it. But there were some bits within it that looked bad. But did they look bad because they were bad? Or did they look bad because they were meant to look bad, and that was the entire purpose and point of it? And I think there's a mixture of the two here. I do think there's a mixture of the two, and we're just going to discuss some of them in this video, which is just, again, I'm not going to keep it too long, just my initial reaction, and then tomorrow we'll come together live and we'll have a proper community discussion backwards and forwards and answer some questions, both from the people who have been affected by that in a negative way, and they believe that that further goes to prove that Bryan Kohberger was guilty, and those who are still on the fence and why. And look, I welcome both opinions, because I appreciate that there were some things in this documentary that, if they are true, and I think that's the big question here, are some of the things that were said, are they accurate? Are they accurate representations of the evidence, of stories that manifested in the background, on the peripheral? Because some of them, and one in particular, did raise a concern to me that could potentially prove, if you like, that there was something going on with Bryan Kohberger, but we'll touch on that in a second. First of all, let's talk about these selfies. I found it was very, very clever what they said with respect of these hoodied selfies. What I took from that is that Bryan Kohberger obviously liked wearing black. He liked wearing black, and he liked wearing hoodies. Pretty much the only thing that I wear is hoodies and black t-shirts. So me and Bryan have a very, very similar, very, very similar taste in attire, if you like, and that in itself doesn't make you a mass murderer. I certainly am not a mass murderer, but I will certainly wear hoodies, and I will certainly wear black. Case in point today, and you've obviously seen the multitude of videos of me wearing a hoodie. But look, they said that they had resized for quality purposes. Now, I think that what they meant by that is they resized them for an impact purpose. Like that picture, them photographs they used could have been of 4 or 5 people in that picture, and they were all wearing hoodies and all wearing different bits and pieces, and they cropped Bryan Kohberger out of it. The fact is, once a picture has been manipulated in some way, shape, or form, the entire feeling of that photo looks different. So without seeing the original, I don't know what to make of it. But what I will say is those pictures themselves, I don't think offer anything in terms of, oh, he must be guilty because he wore this thing and this picture was took. I think that obviously, if you're a guilter, if you like, you're going to see him in a certain way, and we're certainly going to see some comments crop up that says, oh, that's bad, look, he's wearing a hoodie. But I think it's still important to understand that from the bushy eyebrows perspective, Dylan Mortensen didn't raise bushy eyebrows. She was primed to agree with the bushy eyebrows terminology, and that has then after the fact been utilized to kind of point at Bryan and say he's got bushy eyebrows, she said bushy eyebrows, take that as you will, and that's not the full story here. Yeah, so you've got that. You've obviously got situations to do with what he was searching on his phone. He was searching young girls, and he had pictures of, they'd apparently got this information off of his Snapchat account or TikTok, whatever, that Snapchat, one of those, Instagram. And I think to myself, well, first of all, you've got to make sure, 100% sure that it is his account. Now, if it is his account, does the fact that a young man looking at bikini-clad girls necessarily make him a murderer, or does it simply make him, like most men, and that is that they'll perhaps look at pictures of bikini-clad girls on their phone while they're on their own and haven't got anything else to do. I think that there's the vast majority of the male species at some point has done that, especially now when we have social media. I think before that they'd be up in trees with binoculars and peeping toms. But it is what it is. Again, I don't think it's indicative of anything. It can certainly, when you trying to paint a bigger picture, you can handpick different elements and say, well, that looks bad, that looks bad. Like the fact that he would Google Ted Bundy. I'm still losing my voice, by the way. Googling Ted Bundy and this paper on Ted Bundy. Again, when taken out of context, it looks quite weird that he's Googling him, but he was a criminology student, PhD student, heading towards a doctorate. Is it then really bizarre? No, it's not. The fact that he Googled his own name as well, is that bizarre? Not really. I've Googled my own name. I'm guessing that there'll be some of you out there who perhaps Googled your own name. I do it sometimes just to see if anyone shares my name. When I'm connected to YouTube, sometimes I will do that as well, search my name. Again, these things are not indicative of guilt, but it's when you take them out of context or you put them into other things. But there were some things that obviously didn't sit well. And again, then you've got to look at authenticity of the source. You've got to look at the accuracy, authenticity of the information that you're being told. And that will be surrounding different searches about the crime. The fact that he was looking at multiple videos to do with this crime, is that again indicative of someone who did the crime, or was he simply doing something that pretty much I imagine that the vast majority of people around that area were doing, and that was looking at the multiple videos that were done about the crime? Again, you're going to have to tell me what you think and feel about that. I know how many videos I've watched on the Idaho 4 case, and I'm guessing the vast majority of you have watched many. I would say that there is a lot of people who didn't commit that crime who watch videos on YouTube about that crime. Again, not indicative of anything, but lends me to this. And look, this list isn't exhaustive. I'm just going over some bits and pieces. I'm not purposefully cherry picking things. I want to save some stuff to go over during the live tomorrow and have you, especially the guilters, throw some specific questions at me about things that you specifically thought were damning. So I don't want to cover that just yet. But the one thing that stuck out to me that it does make me feel a little bit uncomfortable is this interaction between Bryan Kohberger and this young Asian girl who, you know, they shared an office together. They at one point it looked like it could have gone down the route of an intimate relationship, which she was looking to pursue by the sounds of it, and Bryan kind of stood back from it. But she would have some things go missing from her room, and some other things, bits and pieces would be moved, like a cake that she was going to throw because she burned, ending up being placed in a microwave. Personal effects being rode out across the back of the toilet, and you know, she had some personal effects literally go, a personal letter and a watch. And she noted that on the day that these items were moved and went missing, her key that would normally be in the office that she shared with Bryan was nowhere to be found. She'd looked at it, she couldn't find it, but then a couple of hours later, the key had reappeared. She then subsequently got Bryan to assist her with installing some CCTV, which we've heard some about this story. This has obviously been extrapolated on, but the key would then reappear. And for me, if that story is accurate, if it's honest, which again, I don't know if it is or not, it's just what we're being told. But if that story is accurate and if that story is honest, then that is a very insidious situation. And I would have to lean towards Bryan Kohberger being the most likely person who had access to that key and could have done it. Now, is he the only person? No, but again, this builds into a list of circumstantial things, and he is the most likely person who would have had access to it. They literally shared an office together. It interacted with one another. He would have known where she was. and probably knew that he could go into her property. So there is this one specific situation that, yeah, it makes me feel a certain way. And if you then succumb to the reality that this is likely and this could have been done, does it then lean into, if he's willing and able to do that and he does that, then where was that leading? Where was that heading to? Again, it doesn't mean 100% that he did this crime, if indeed he did this, but it certainly goes into the psyche of Bryan Kohberger and question it. So that one specific thing for me was a huge, huge red flag. But let me know down below what you think, and I'll catch you all tomorrow.